Welcome back to class. Today is the last lecture for food safety and hygiene. And I'm sure you recall the three main causes of safety when we talk about the biological hazards, physical as well as chemical. And I'm sure you can recall some of them and you did your reading. Yes, so food safety part 2 will continue. So at the end, you should be able to describe ways to prevent foodborne diseases, explain how to wash hands properly. Hand washing is key to food safety. Handling. Everything that we eat, we handle it in one way or the other, even before using a spoon or a fork to eat. Yes, it would have been handled using hands. So hand washing is key. Describe how to handle foods to avoid contamination, and then illustrate how to store food to avoid contamination. It is very, very important. Handling food is very, very important to avoid poisoning. Handling raw food and then cooked food, we should be able to understand that cooked food is something that is already cooked that we have to eat. Heat has been applied, and therefore, if there are any pathogens at all, bacteria and so forth, microorganisms, they'll be killed. But when we handle the cooked one and then we go and handle raw and then we come and touch the cooked food, then it means that we are creating problems. Another typical example is when we are making salad and then we are handling, let's say, other raw food, let's say meat, and then we are cutting salad and we are using the same chopping board as well as cutting the meat on the same chopping board. If you have only one chopping board, then it means the salad should be chopped first before the meat, because this is all cross-contamination and that can cause problems for us. So raw foods, pests and animals also create problems. We leave the food open, we have cockroaches crawling on them and so forth. We have sometimes the food is left on the floor. We have goats and other animals also taking their share, and then also the food is opened. We have contaminants in the air that is blowing over. The dust also carries some, and then they are all left on the food, and then these are all potential hazards that we need to guard against. Very, very important if we are talking about the safety of our foods. And these are examples of foods that can be hazardous if we don't really handle them very well. So when we talk of bacteria playing an important role in our food safety issues, yes, why do we talk about them? Because they are the major causative agents that gives us the pain in the tummy and so forth. And these bacteria, they require nutrients, moisture and warmth to grow. And in most cases, our foods and then our ambient temperature, environmental conditions do provide them with all these conditions that are conducive for them to grow. That is why it is important for us to handle our food safe, so that we do not give chance for the bacteria to multiply. So when it comes to buying food, yes, knowing how to buy, where to buy, what to buy, and how to buy, they are all key in preventing contamination. So we need to look out for how clean the food is. Is it contaminated? We have to make sure that the food is not smelling, hasn't got any offensive odor. In appearance, it is good. So we need to, because we are holding the money, so it is important that we examine the food properly. Any raw food or any cooked food that we are buying, to make sure that it is safe before it is bought. And for canned goods, one should watch out for bulging. Yes, and what I have observed in Africa, I've been to Nigeria, I've been to Sierra Leone, when the things are bulging, that is when we see the woman ringing bell and saying that it is cheap. That is telling us that the food is not good, because for any canned good, the can should be flat, smooth. But once we see, it's different from the dent. Once the can is bulging, then we should know that spoilage is on its way. Therefore, it is not a safe food to buy. Yes, so this is the can that you see up there is bulging. That is a typical example of what I'm talking about. And then when we check the bruises on the mangoes, yes, contamination, bacteria, and so forth. So we shouldn't be buying them. Yes, and then when we look at this, yes, the fresh tomatoes on the open market, flies all over. Yes, some of them are getting rotten, and the flies are also doing their own business on them. So once we buy them and we get home, we don't wash them and so forth, we are going to be eating contaminated food. So even when we are buying, we have the money. So it's our always advice that we select and make sure we are selecting whole heart tomatoes, not those that are rotten. Because as they get rotten, contamination sets in very easily. Yes, once again, we take our foods to the mill to mill them. Look at how they are looking at the mill. Do they clean them? Yes, as university students are right to even educate them, tell them after the day's job they should clean. You know, mixing, somebody has gone to mill, let's say tomato, somebody also goes to mill something else. Then you are getting a mixture of everything. So actually you are not getting the pure ingredients that you took out to mill. And you don't know how long that leftover has been in the machine. So it is very, very important. So these are some of the areas where we get our foods contaminated that we should be aware of. Once again, we are seeing some of our rotten tomatoes. Look at what is on the left on the screen and then what is on the right. You see the right, well packaged, looking nice and beautiful. These are foods that we should select from. Then when it comes to storing food, how do we store foods? Dry foods should be stored dried in a cool place. But sometimes we mix things, wet things and dry things, and the wet things, they provide moisture for the dry ones to absorb, and therefore we see our dry foods also going bad in no time. So it is very, very important that we don't store them together. Storage is very, very important. And then when we store, how do we prevent? Do we leave them open or we cover them so that rats and other pests do not gain access? This is also very, very important, because when they gain access, they sometimes even defecate on them, and we don't see. Some also even urinate on them. We pick them and eat. So it is very, very important that we store our foods in closed covered containers or in plastic containers or plastic bags that we tie. Very, very important. Yes, what is wrong with this picture that you see on the screen? Yes, what are we seeing? We are seeing some chemicals up there. Down there we are seeing some food. This is not proper way to store. You can't have foods under chemicals, because if there is spillage, they will fall on the foods and then we'll pick them and eat, and that will be chemical poisoning. So this is a chemical hazard, typical one. So storage is very, very key in whatever we do. So when it comes to handling food, there are 4 core practices that we should do. Keep your hands and surfaces clean. Keep raw food separate from cooked ones. We should also keep hot food hot and keep cold food cold. So we are talking about hot food hot, cold food cold. Ice cream shouldn't be eaten melted. You know, it is wrong. Especially milk products, because of our high ambient temperatures, bacteria tend to multiply easily, and they are good source for them because they have all the ingredients that they need to multiply. Then when it comes to keeping our hands and surfaces clean, we need to wash our hands and wash them very well. Before, during, and after food preparation, we need to wash our hands before we touch the food to even start cooking them. Before eating, it is very, very important. And before eating, not just washing with soap, with water, but with water and soap. Then after using the toilet and so forth, it is also very, very important that hands are washed. And then blowing of nose and then hair, touching our hair and then touching food, all these things are not appropriate. So as we are buying our foods, when we see the person through blowing his nose and what, we should advise, go and wash your hands before you touch the food for me. It's very, very important. It's our fundamental human rights. After handling animals, and especially their waste, it is also very, very important that hands are washed. And also, sometimes we don't see our hands to be dirty, so we think they are clean, but they are not. So we need to wash before we handle. Also, when we handle the sick, it is also very, very important that we wash our hands. Yes. So this diagram is also showing some of the behaviors that can contaminate our foods, and I have mentioned some of them already. So touching our nose, rubbing our ears and whatever. And so this picture, try to picture it, and then when you ask any question about some behaviors that can cause foods to be contaminated and therefore create safety issues regarding food. Once you remember this picture, I'm sure you can do justice to the question. Yes, and then this is a microbiological stain that I'm showing you to show that when we look in our palm, we think our palm is clean. So this person's palm look clean just like mine, but when was asked to touch the agar and then we lift it to grow, you see, it is showing us that no, our bare hands, we use it to open the door, you use it to touch the chair, somebody also touched it before. You didn't know what was in that person's hands. So we shouldn't make assumptions that our hands are clean. No, we need to wash them. Yes, so washing hands, this is showing us the stages, under running water. Sometimes we may not have running water, but we can ask somebody to pour the water into our hands for us to wash them. That is the best way of washing, and not using the same dirty water that somebody has washed their hands in also to wash. And especially when we are going to eat, everybody should wash using a separate washing a bowl with water. It's very, very important. Yes, this is a typical food area, and I'm sure you can agree with me that the sanitation in the place is not right at all, and how things are arranged, horrible. This shouldn't be the case. These are things that this arrangement can easily cause contamination that we need to avoid. Yes. Then what's wrong with this picture that we are seeing? Yes. See, somebody has a saw there and then is touching the saw. This is not healthy. In the food processing unit, this shouldn't be encouraged. So study this diagram carefully, and you should be able to tell some of the wrong behaviors that people do, and then we try to overcome them. So when it comes to keeping food, we keep raw foods separate in separate compartments. We shouldn't mix them with cooked food. What is wrong here? Meat, and then we have vegetables. The meat which is raw is rather up, and then the vegetable which will be eaten raw is down. This is the wrong arrangement. The vegetable should be up, and then the uncooked meat is down. So as we arrange things in our fridge and so forth, we should bear these things in mind. Keeping hot food hot is key. Keeping cold food cold, meaning that in our refrigerator, or we should have ice on them when we are traveling with them. Very, very important. Then once again, apply your knowledge and load the fridge. So this is for you to answer for your own exercise from what we've discussed earlier on. Handling takeout foods and leftover foods. How do we handle them? Yes, they should also be kept in a container and then kept in a fridge. Yes, and sometimes we leave the foods outside. Yes, if you want to leave a soup or a stew on the stove, we don't have the cooling system, then it is best that we warm it again after taking the portion, so that and then we cover it. It is very, very important. But we shouldn't leave them open. It is very, very wrong. What are some of the effects of foodborne illnesses? We may have diarrhea and malnutrition. And when we talk of malnutrition, repeating itself, because every time that person is having diarrhea, we will finally see that the person becomes undernourished due to infection. We may also have secondary diseases arising from that. And the long effect will be impacting the individual, the community, or the society. So it has cost to the individual, cost to if it is a factory, yes, in our part of the world. Now we are becoming very wise in Ghana. We started using the lawyers to sue. So if you buy something and then you get infected, yes, you have the right to sue that individual. And then healthcare cost is also something that we should bear. Cost to our health institutions, yes, cost to the states, because health insurance will also go up. So economic cost to the individual is key. Medical cost is important. We lose income because we don't go to work. Physical health cost is also very, very important. Pain and suffering, yes. If you are having diarrhea, you are not just going to buy medication, but you suffer for it. Yes, so that alone should tell us that we should try as much as possible to avoid food poisoning. Then if it is an industry, yes, loss of productivity due to worker absenteeism. Yes. So even if it is your own personal factory, small thing that you are doing alone, when you are sick, you can't do it. So you lost some money. And sometimes with the bigger factories and so forth, there is recall, and that has serious financial implications. Yes, and then because of that, in the advanced countries, for example, there is constant surveillance, which we don't do here. But constant surveillance also brings about costs, because one should be monitoring every time. For example, here we have the FDA. They are supposed, the Food and Drugs Authority, they are supposed to be going around to all the markets, all the shops, and check on the quality of the foods that they are serving, whether even they are selling, whether they are arranged properly, whether the expiring date is correct, whether the foods are labeled right. All these things have implications on safety of food. Yes. So if you are doing the right thing, then it means we wouldn't spending much money on this. So cost to the state is huge when we have food poison and so forth. Loss of human resource is a major challenge to us. Individual responsibility, we all have a share in this. We have to bear much of the responsibility to ensure that our foods are safe. We all have to talk about it. It is not just for one person. So we need to eat safe, be safe, use clean water. Yes, make sure that the temperature of whatever we are eating is right. We should stay away from foodborne illnesses. It is very, very important for us to help develop Mother Ghana. So for our take home, we can buy from anywhere, yes or no. This question is key. You know our environment. You know those who are selling by the gutter. Go to Ugrc and see what is happening. You see cassava dough lying in some black greenish water. Is that the place to buy? So this is food for thought. Should food be cooked very well? From what we have discussed, you should be able to answer that. Under what conditions should one wash his hands? Yes. Is it only when we are going to eat? Is it only when we visit the washroom? Yes. Give me some answers. And next week, we shall discuss energy balance. So read your notes and come back safe. Make wise choices as you select your food. Know where to buy, what to buy, where to eat, how to eat, and what not to eat, and how to save. Keep your food, store them safe. See you next week.